This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, folks, what's going on? Welcome to a Tuesday afternoon edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I'm Andrew Paterson with you, along with Michael Remis, and we got a busy show today. Really looking forward to talking Jets. Tough loss last night against the Montreal Canadiens. Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun will join us in just a few moments. And at 1:45, if you're watching live on the YouTube stream, our second guest will be none other than Andrew, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Should be a great show. Let's bring in Michael Remis. Remo, what is going on? How you doing? And what'd you think of that game last night?
Happy to be here. Great day. Sorry, I turned off all my alerts for getting all these retweets. But the game last night, I actually thought the Jets, for the most part, played the kind of game you want them to play on a nightly basis. The games that they were playing earlier and winning against Montreal in overtime, some of those they were relying a lot on Connor Hellebuyck. They were getting outshot. I really thought that yesterday they played well, and look, a couple turnovers, led to a couple goals against. Other than those turnovers, when you count out the worst parts of the game, actually I thought they played pretty well.
Yeah, you know what? I did like the start of the team. I thought they came out and, listen, turnovers and bad ones really ended up being the story for the game from a Jets perspective. I mean, it was really unfortunate. I mean, Andrew Kopp, who's usually one of the more reliable guys on the squad, turns that one over and ends up in the back of the net early, and that sort of took away a lot of the momentum the Jets had from what I thought was, a team coming out. You're always worried about how the team looks in that first game back coming off the road. They seem to be ready to play. Things really changed in the second period, though. And listen, Carey Price, I thought, was the story of the first period when Montreal had that 1-0 lead. And, then, they get up to 2-0. The Jets ended up coming back. And, once again, it was, a colossal comedy of errors, really, with Josh Morrissey and then Neil Pionk on that third goal that ended up in a 3-on-0. A 3-on-0. You can't really fault Connor Hellebuyck for that. So, listen, we'll have lots of time to talk about the game. We'll get into it. We, of course, have to thank our wonderful sponsors helping us make this all happen here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Not AutoCorp, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Royal Sports, and Boston Pizza Winnipeg. And, of course, we'll hit the lines a little later on for a cool bet. But yeah, Remo, I mean, listen, these things are going to happen. I mean, the Jets, maybe if you looked at those first three games of the four in a row against Montreal, hey, they'd won all three, so they put themselves in a very good position going forward. Had that 7-1 loss 2 Saturdays ago, and I think we all agreed that, the next time these two teams played, the Jets will be much better. But again, Montreal was coming off a couple losses in Calgary, and I think played, especially in the third period, like more of a desperate team. The one thing that stood out for me last night, and it reminded me of the Anaheim Ducks kind of like 6-7 years ago. The Canadian sticks last night, you always hear hockey guys talk about, wow, they've got good sticks. They're really, this is a team that's got good sticks. The Habs sticks last night, whether it was just straight up pickpocketing Winnipeg Jet players and Winnipeg Jet defensemen for glorious scoring opportunities, or in the neutral zone, getting their sticks in front of pucks, often in midair, not even on the ice. It really did create some problems for the Winnipeg Jets at times, more so in their own end. But from the Jets side of things, I mean, I thought they did generate quite a bit. I thought Carey Price was really good last night. Connor Hellebuyck had to be good, very good at times. And at the end of the day, those are the sort of games that could go either way. But it's hard not to look at that game and think, man, that was maybe a little self-inflicted. I mean, if the puck management was a little bit better, I think you can certainly see a path for victory last night from Winnipeg.
Yeah, no question about that. You look at the first goal, a little turnover by Kopp on the boards, but full credit to Josh Anderson for laying out. And I don't think I've seen too many guys make a pass like that, like diving on the ice and passing over to Drouin, who makes a, Forbert is kind of thrown off by the the puck that's in no man's land. You had that one. And, the Pionk giveaway after the bounce over Morrissey stick. That was a rough one as well. And I think the second one was Morrissey failing to clear the puck in his own end. So, a couple miscues. There were a couple other, posts. And there was breakaway as well. Hellbuck had to be good on. But for the most part, self-inflicted. We talked about Carey Price. I had been hearing for the first 2 months this guy is done. He's got an untradeable contract. Jake Allen is better than him. He should be the one who's starting. Well, look at Carey Price's numbers in March. In 6 starts, Huss. I know a very small sample, but .950 save percentage, 150 goals against. And, in February, he was he had his terrible month. 880 save percentage and 328 goals against. So, and that's in January, it still wasn't as great. 898 save percentage, 292 goals against. So, much, much better in March. And that's kind of the guy that you think you're going to get with Carey Price. So full credit to him for having a bounce back March so far.
No doubt about it. Hey, I want to give a shout out to some of our community, our peeps in the chat. Mark Sports Video is there. Good morning to you, Mark. And maybe check out Mark. I mean, if you want to see all the gory details of Josh Morrissey's night last night, Mark's prepared a video for that if you're willing to put yourself through that. The Godfather himself, Mitch from Winnipeg Hockey Talk is here. Roger Quinville, Dustin Fung, Chris D of all people. Nobody covers the Winnipeg market better than Chris and his team. Great to have Chris here. The original, the OG, caller number 1, Gregory Liverpool. Greg had some takes. Greg actually tweeted out those takes afterwards, Remis, shocked that you did not know the daylight savings rules about changing your batteries in the smoke alarms. You're, homeowner, family guy now, need to take those Greg's tips to make sure that you're ready for, what's to come after the clocks change. Got to have those smoke detectors fired up.
Yeah, I didn't change my smoke detector's batteries yesterday. However, I did change a battery in my Dyson vacuum. I had been putting it off for a long time. Ooh. It didn't go on max mode anymore, and it was like you do one room and it would die. And I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm getting a new battery. I don't care. Better than paying, $500 for a new vacuum. We've had this thing for a couple years. The thing runs like brand new. Pulled out the screwdriver, super easy. I'm like, I should have done this months ago. And that's my story about my Dyson vac. I know everyone's here to hear about the vacuum. No one's here to hear about the Jets.
Yeah, it's a lot of vacuum talk. We'll roll through some other household advice from many people, not coming from me. And by the way, Ray, I got to give you some credit. Apparently, I'm sounding better today. Now, I'm not sure whether this is because I'm making a point of talking closer into the microphone, whether I've taken your suggestion to use headphones, or that we have moved on. CTO Michael Remis continuing to step up the production quality. Mm-hmm. We're using the Ninja today, and from the sounds of it, the sound is better. Hopefully it'll look better. As long as we can get Billeck and Andrew Harris in on the program, we'll be laughing.
Yeah, we should have better video quality, better sound quality for you, Huss, and the guests going forward. Their mouths will be moving in sync. I know a lot of people. I mean, look, everyone's having to do remote broadcast. I've seen a lot of sync issues among NHL broadcasts as well, and you see everyone. Look, I'm not the only one who can put their mic on mute. Even that guy at the Golden Globes who won his award was on mute. I think on news shows, they're always telling people to take off mute. So, look, we're all getting used to it. I'll make sure to have my mic on when things get going.
Couple more shout-outs. Tom Halleck's here, TB Covers, Owen Urema, and how about Igor Nestorenko, Remo, joining us from Bermuda right now? Winnipeg Sports Talk worldwide.
Yeah, I know Igor. Welcome. He's always Instagramming great shots from Bermuda. Looks lovely there. So appreciate everyone coming out. You get to see some of the countries where people are watching from. I think Finland and some of the European countries on YouTube are the most popular.
A couple others, Roddy Gordon, Lady Mystery. Wayne Jones is tuning in from Norway. What's up, Wayne? Great to have you with us. And yes, that was a tough game for the Winnipeg Jets. Red Rangers here. And David F. is saying what everyone's saying. Winnipeg vacuum talk is what we are here for. So, listen, we've got it all together. And you might see the background that I'm rocking today, folks. It is a picture taken by me of the celebration of the 2019 Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I'm very excited to tell you that we're going to be bringing in the guy who was the top player, the top Canadian, and the heart and soul of this Winnipeg Blue Bombers championship team. Andrew Harris is going to join us. Talk to him about the longest off season ever, looking ahead to the upcoming season. And I'm not sure how much he'll want to talk about it, but certainly just see what his reaction to the news last week of, a potential, discussions working between the CFL and XFL and what that means for a player like him, especially someone that has not only been so dominant, but a Canadian kid that, came through Canadian football to become one of the great stars in CFL history. So all of that coming up, and as I mentioned, we'll have Scott Billeck come up in a couple minutes. Remo, at the end of the program, after we're finished with Billeck, focusing on the Jets, and with Andrew Harris, we're going to need to dive in a little bit to tonight's action. And I guess when we look at the lines, the game that I'm going straight to, talked about this on the Lock Shop with Dustin Nielsen earlier today. One of the worst matchups in regular season, potentially NHL history when you think about it. The Buffalo Sabres, having lost 11 in a row, going into New Jersey, who have lost 11 in a row at home, have lost 9 of 10 right now. A true somebody's got to win game.
Wow, that is something to think about. I would probably roll with New Jersey. Although New Jersey at a minus 180 favorite is scary. I like Mackenzie Blackwood. They have a lot of talent. Buffalo, the news that's coming out of there, it has gone horribly this season. Taylor Hall signing there. I don't think he could have imagined this. He's probably going to get traded to a contender. I mean, they're benching Jeff Skinner, who's got a massive contract. There's calls among the fans that they should fire the coach. Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News is saying that they've quit and grilling them in post-game press conferences. The Buffalo Sabres are even tweeted out that they're giving away or letting all the first responders, come to a game, and all the replies were like, "Yeah, it's because you couldn't get anyone to buy the tickets, or haven't these first responders suffered enough?" It's crazy what's going on in Buffalo. They haven't been good for a long time, and this rebuild. Who's gonna, win get back into the playoffs first, Edmonton or Buffalo? I think Edmonton certainly winning the rebuild, getting back into the playoffs a couple of years ago, but they're still not quite there yet. But maybe this year will be their year.
Hey, listen, before we get to Billeck, just a little bit of breaking news. This used to be our Rick's department, the waiver wire, but some interesting names on the waiver wire today, beginning with goaltender Anton Forsberg. People may not realize, of the Winnipeg Jets. Forsberg was picked up off waivers. He's been essentially on the taxi squad. And I was listening to the guys in Edmonton earlier today. I think it was Low Tide. And he said, well, isn't that coincidental that the Winnipeg Jets decide to throw Forsberg on waivers as soon as Alex Stalock has finished his quarantine and is ready to play for the Edmonton Oilers? So we'll see what that means. We'll ask Scott about that coming up in a minute. But here's some other names that, I don't know, I'm a little surprised to see you hit the waiver wire. Mikhail Grigorenko from Columbus, but Paul Byron from the Montreal Canadiens, and Jimmy Vesey from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Vesey so far this year has been a pretty nice contributor on that fourth line. We knew there were guys like Nick Patan was in somewhat limbo, but I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd see Jimmy Vesey's name get across the waiver wire. And you wonder what's behind that move for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they have a couple days off before getting back to it going into the weekend.
Yeah, when I saw Forsberg, I was like, wait, Philip Forsberg of the Predators is on the waiver wire? And then I saw Elliot Friedman wrote WIN, and don't get me started about his abbreviation use. Don't get me started. But I was like, oh, right, they had Anton Forsberg, and I think that's not a surprise. Eric Comrie, they had picked up off waivers. They want to use him to be the guy. So Forsberg, he's playing part of the goalie carousel. We'll see if someone picks him up. He was on Edmonton before, Carolina. So we'll see. And Jimmy Vesey, what a career it's been for him. He was the big college free agent signing and signed with Toronto. Remember, there was talk, his dad was with the organization, but seems to not work there. And I did see today they're also trying to bring Alex Galchenyuk along with the Marlies. Maybe he'll, continue to make some progress and make an appearance with the NHL team.
Well, interesting. Anyways, we'll stay on top of that and all the rest of the NHL news. We'll do a bit of a roundup at the end of the program. We'll get to the lines for tonight, including that toilet bowl between the Devils and the Sabres. But right now, let's get to priority number one, and that's focusing on our Winnipeg sports teams. And it is a pleasure to welcome in to WST Daily a guy that has, and I've said this before on the program before we finished up on Pembina Highway, now has really been, I mean, he turned into an absolute go-to guy for Winnipeg Jet fans, but probably far more importantly to our community, he's become a real go-to guy handling both the Jets beat and the pandemic beat. And that, of course, is our good friend from the Winnipeg Sun, Scott Billeck, who joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Scotty, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us for the first time here on the new program. What's going on?
But yeah, no, it's good to see you back behind the mic and Remis too.
Well, man, it's been a lot of fun. As I mentioned, you don't want to get into it too much because it sounds like an epic week-long Barry Horowitz. But the support we've had from everyone has been incredible. The numbers that we put up so far beyond what we'd expected. The support from people, from sponsors, from this community, I think realizes that this is a format. I mean, the passion is here for these teams. The fans are here right now, and in the big picture, is it really necessary to be at the far end of an AM radio dial? No, it's nice to be, but certainly there's a lot of other ways that we can get this out, and we're seeing it every day with the amount of people that are joining us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Hey, just before we get into the game last night, I just mentioned the Anton Forsberg waivers situation. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of a the history of Anton Forsberg with the Winnipeg Jets, because it's brief. There's not a lot of game action, but it has been quite interesting the way he, as an asset, has been managed by the Jets. Similar to the way where a number of other teams have handled third goalies right now in this strange season.
Well, yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the Jets losing Eric Carney again, right? Which is something you saw last season, and so the Jets were very much hoping that Eric Carney would slip through the waiver wire, when they put him down there, I guess over a month now, ago. And obviously he got claimed by the New Jersey Devils there. And so he gets claimed, and the Jets are scrambling to find a goalie. So they, Edmonton puts, or was it Carolina? I don't remember who put it, because he was still in Edmonton, I believe. And that's why he didn't have to quarantine for as long. But anyways, so yeah, they claim Anton Forsberg off waivers, and then you can't send him down. He's on the active roster. He sits there, and he's been there ever since. And it's interesting. And you kind of said it right before I came on about how Alex Stalock was out of his quarantine now in Edmonton, and so the Jets put him on waivers today, probably hoping that they can maybe either slip him through or that he does get taken, because now Eric Carney can come up and be that. But my guess is now, with the Stalock news, is they're trying to get him through, and this is their best opportunity. I think people look at it, well, why today? And I think it's just it's a strategic game right now. You're hoping that the team doesn't need that taxi squad goalie at the moment, and that sort of thing. And so I think the Jets are really trying to just get him through, and then hopefully they can hold on to him, because maybe at some point he becomes an asset to them. It's a strange season, and you never know what's going to happen. Every day is one of those days where one guy could be on the COVID-related absence list, whatever, and they'll need somebody, right? He could turn into an asset, and like you said, kind of asset management the Jets have been doing. So, yeah, a strange kind of scenario, but this is a season that's kind of bred a lot of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the Jets, from the Jets' perspective, they don't want to be digging into that third goalie at all. They want it to be Connor Hellebuck and the Ren Brossoit for obvious reasons. But we saw Michael Hutchinson play for the Avalanche in the playoffs last year, so stranger things have happened. You can't be too sure at that position. All right, Scotty. Well, let's get to last night's game. A comedy of errors at times, but overall, I mean, I think there were some stretches, first period and third period, where the Jets were good. I mean, they came to play last night. But again, whether we're talking about Andrew Kopp or Josh Morrissey or Neil Pionk, some pretty egregious defensive gaffes leading to goals that, while the Jets overall, need to improve defensively, even those were way out of character for those players and just how dramatic they were and how much they swung the hockey game.
Right, exactly. I mean, you talk about Andrew Kopp, and Paul Maurice talks about here's a guy who they never have to show video to. I mean, this might be the first time they have to show, a piece of footage to Andrew Kopp on that gaff. And part of that was, I don't think Derek Forward's pass to Kopp at the blue and was very good, and so it kind of led to that. And then you obviously have the Morrissey. Josh Morrissey had a tough night last night at the office, and I at least for me, I have a long leash for Josh Morrissey. I think he was given a really tough hand last year and did as best as he could. And then this year, he's had to play with maybe not the pairing guys that you would probably want him to. I mean, this is kind of the first time he's played with Dylan DeMello, and so this season at least, and so you need to give him some time with that. But yeah, I mean, the whiff on the third goal. I mean, the whiff on the blue line. Some people say the puck bounced. To me, it looked like it bounced stick. And then Neil Pionk just trying to fire one up the middle of the ice. Oh, that didn't work. I mean, Tyler Toffoli got it, and what we've seen from Tyler Toffoli this year, he's just an absolute killer when it comes to scoring goals. Right?
Ask the Canucks.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a guy who's now, I think, he's 17 on the year, and that 17th goal ended up being the game winner for Montreal. And that's the thing. The Jets, they played now, in my mind, two pretty good games 5-on-5. It's just, the difference between the Toronto game and last night's game is the errors. They're just uncharacteristic. Kind of all three of those goals, aside from the empty net goal, which is whatever. Just self-inflicted wounds, right? I mean, that game probably should have been won by the Jets. I mean, I thought they played well. I mean, that first shift by the Scheifele line to start the game was incredible. I mean, that was one of the best shifts I've probably seen that line play all season. But they just didn't get it. I mean, the best Logan Stanley, and that's a good thing for the organization. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what you want to hear. Every night. You want Logan Stanley to be good. You don't want him to be the best defenseman when he's playing on the third pairing. So yeah, it's a tough night at the office. I think especially for Josh Morrissey. It's been a bit of a tough year for him again this year, just trying to get settled with who knows who he's going to play with on some nights. But yeah.
Well, it's funny. I mean, focusing in on the blue line and, we were talking out fair. I don't think there was any doubt that Logan Stanley was the Jets' best defenseman last night. And you do make a good point. If that's the case, well, you're probably talking about a night that was somewhat rough for your defense corps as a group.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I mean, every time he gets into the lineup, he seems to be more comfortable, more confident, more impressive, more like he belongs. And Scott, I said this yesterday on the program before last night's game, and I feel it even more strongly today than I did yesterday, that that Nate Beaulieu is about to get Wally pipped by Logan Stanley, meaning that, listen, it's not his fault he got injured and he got knocked out of the lineup, but I just can't see how, especially if there's another couple weeks of him getting experience in there. I mean, knowing Paul Maurice, and listen, I know he loves and will defer to veteran players at times, often, but with what Stanley brings to the game, what he can do for the Winnipeg Jets, and the way he continues to improve, I can't wrap my head around a possibility that if Beaulieu's healthy and everyone else is healthy, that Logan Stanley's out of the lineup. I think he's a regular as of now as a Winnipeg Jet.
Yeah, and I mean 100%. I completely agree with you, and I think the reason. Here's a guy who, if he does make a mistake, and that they have kind of been few and far between, which has been good. But man, does he bounce back after a mistake? Like his next 2 or 3 shifts after, he's back to doing whatever he does well normally, which getting pucks on net. Sounds. I mean, the guy has like a wingspan of a pterodactyl, right? Like, I mean, this guy is huge, and so he can break up plays from like it's hyperbole, but a mile away. I mean, this guy can do the things that Zdeno Chara became very well known for. You beat a guy, you think you got a guy like that beat, and then here comes this stick from, you think he's beat, and then the stick just breaks up the play, and it's ridiculous. And then that hit last night, boy, I mean, that hit. So I don't think, if you had a several $1,000 sound system in your house and still watching it, I don't think the thundering nature of that hit came through your TV. And I was sitting right over top of it in press row last night. And this isn't a humble brag. It's just, I'm trying to describe to you how big of a, like this. So there's no fans in the building. And, if viewers watch the UFC, I mean, a lot of during the pandemic where there's no fans, a lot of the punches, the kicks, there's a very visceral sound to them. And you really feel it. And that hit last night, that, you felt that hit. I mean, obviously Jake Evans felt that hit. He was bleeding after it, but it was massive. And there was not a thing that Montreal was going to do about it, because, you turn around to look at who hit you like that. And here's a 6'7" dude that is not going to, if you want to fight him, you can. I've seen Stanley in a scrap before. It doesn't look like a fun time. And so, but yeah, I mean, to go back to, just him, he's impressive. I mean, I think there was a lot of people that wrote him off.
Before he ever played one single game in the NHL.
I know. And I get it, right? I mean, you get it. You trade up for a guy who's pretty much a project player. He's taken in the same round that Patrick Laine goes in. Like, I get it. I understand that this is a guy who wasn't going to play right away, but man, what he's turned into now as a 22-year-old, it is like, I mean, if you had to do it all over again, I think fans would be like, oh yeah, okay, let's wait, because this is, if this is how good he is right now, I mean, imagine when he's got some, more pro experience under his belt playing in the NHL. It starts learning tendencies of his opponents and stuff like that, where he knows what to kind of do, how to defend better, that sort of thing. Everything that was said again, his speed, whatever. No, it's all there, right? Like I feel like I'm gushing, which is one of those things that I used to bug Paul Maurice about doing. But he's just really good. He's just a good player, and until you see something bad out of him, which arguably you didn't, even when he came out of the lineup. I don't think he's coming out.
Well, and I've said this number of times before back on Pembina Highway, mentioned it yesterday, but I mean, it's important to realize the difference between certain prospects. And I mean, we were on the draft floor that day, and yeah, all the excitement was about Patrick Laine, and it was the Laine draft, and the Jets won the lottery. But when they traded up to get Logan Stanley, Mark Hillier came on with us half an hour later and said, guys, this is a very different pick we were making. Yeah. This is a future pick. And he said to us on the air that day, he's going to be 2 more years in junior, and he's going to play a couple years in the American Hockey League. He's literally 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Yeah.
And those are those last 2 years. And I mean, even the last couple seasons, I'll tell you one thing that it's quite clear, that a lot of the hot takes that come in on players and how, they blew the pick and this guy doesn't belong, or people that probably spent total of 0 minutes watching the Manitoba Moose. Because, right. Anyone that went to those games and everyone that spent any time talking to Pascal Vincent saw that this is a different player from his first week in the American Hockey League to his first week last season to the end of last year, now to where he is right now. And, credit where credit is due. Mark Hillier called his shot on the show the day they picked him. And right now, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of ammo to go at the Jets scouts in the past, and this was sort of a guy that was thought to be the bust pick. Man, it's amazing how a narrative can change so much when a guy actually gets a chance to play.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's it. And I think you kind of hope that this is kind of the learning moment for a lot of people, right? Because it wasn't just us. I mean, it wasn't just fans. I mean, it was us in the media too. We're all kind of perplexed by the pick at the time, right? And because the way that the world works with social media, with analytics, all that stuff, there's a lot of snap judgments that are made immediately. Every pick is scrutinized the moment that the first letter of the name comes out of the mouth of the GM or whoever they put up on the stage. So yeah, it's a cautionary tale, I think, especially with some of these kind of bigger defenseman. Like, you've seen Tyler Myers come into the league and he wins the Calder Trophy in his first season. But you also have to realize that a guy like Zdeno Chara is going to end up in the Hall of Fame one day. He wasn't who he was in the first few seasons of his career.
Not even close.
Exactly.
The most awkward player in NHL history.
Exactly, right? And so it took some time, but then look at what he comes out to be. He's a perennial kind of Norris guy, wins a Stanley Cup with the Boston Bruins. And now he's still coveted. People, the Washington Capitals wanted him. I mean, and he's almost 40, or he is 40. He might be even over 40 at this point for Chara. His size, his ability to play the game is so, and just the physical, like imposing nature that a guy that size has. I mean, I remember watching the Bruins back in their, they're still in their kind of heyday, but back in the early, 2010s and whatever. This is a guy that, like, if somebody was going after your smaller player, I mean, you'd have this guy kind of knocking on your shoulder and like, yeah, what are you going to do about it, right? Like, skate away, like this, like Logan Stanley has that in him too. Like, I think there's just this all around guy who's kind of a bit of a spiritual successor, I suppose, to Dustin Byfuglien. I mean, a different way to play the game. But, if the Jets are kind of going to be blessed with another big defenseman that can work at both ends of the ice, I think that's good, given that, this kid's only 22 years old and could have a long future ahead of him in the NHL.
One of the things, and thanks to everyone that is with us live on YouTube right now, keep on firing in those comments. We'll get to some of those to Scott, and if you can, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. One of the things that has really stood out about Stanley, especially probably to so many people that focus on shot attempts and analytics and whatnot, is how much he's been shooting and how good he has been in getting the puck to the net. Now, that hasn't resulted in his first NHL goal yet. Yeah. But with the amount of rubber he's putting at goalies, it does sort of seem like it is a matter of time. Have you been surprised? Has that aspect of his game maybe stood out, Scott, as opposed to what maybe we were expecting when we saw him make the graduation to the National League?
A little bit, but I think if you watch, I mean, you mentioned if you watched the Moose before, you would have seen some of these things. And this is one of his things that he was able to do with the Moose. I mean, this is a guy who can kind of get the puck through. And I asked Paul Maurice about this when I was doing a story on Stanley earlier, or last week, I guess it is now. Because not every defenseman has the ability to kind of thread that needle right to the net. And I think that's what's helped Stanley. I mean, he gets his first assist, albeit on a double deflection. I get that. But the point is the shot got through and it was able to, able to get a goal. And that's not the first chance that he's made. Last night, he wound up for a shot. I'm like, man, like one of these is going into the back of the net because eventually he's going to get it right. He's going to, and I think part of it too is like, there was a time last night where he took a shot from the point and I was like, why does he do that? He missed the net probably by like 10 feet. Like it wasn't, whatever. But I think it's just kind of wired in him to kind of keep the play in the zone, right? So he'll do that. And that's part of it too. But I think, he's becoming more confident. There was a play last night as well where he's down low. I mean, this guy's moving in and engaging and
he got it to Wheeler right in front of the net on that play.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like, there's offensive instincts in this guy, and you obviously you saw this in the AHL. And I understand he was injured last year, and in his first year he was still trying to figure it out, just as a pro. But you saw these instincts in the AHL, and obviously he was able to do it in the OHL. But yeah, he's just a, I don't know. He had ability. I don't know if people are afraid of the shot or whatever. I mean, people would fly out of the way of Zdeno Chara's shot from the point because the guy had one of the hardest shots in the league sometimes, and it was just who wants to block it? But there, the other part of it is he has this vision. He's able to do it. He puts it in the right spot, or at least puts it into a spot where you can get a stick on it or make that deflection or whatever it might be. And so, yeah, it's again just another kind of tool in his arsenal that he has. And it's pretty crazy to see because I mean, again, you're still realizing this guy's a rookie. He's obviously played 2 years of pro or a year and a half technically based on games, but he has this ability. And for fans, whether you doubted him before or didn't or whatever, I think all you can do right now is be happy that he's turned out to be the player that the Jets figured he was, and the scouting staff obviously kind of knew that he would be.
Mark my words on this, Scott, speaking of those shots getting through. I mean, the Jets, especially when you look back at that series against the Leafs, and they were incredibly dangerous on the rush. They had, creating odd man chances, capitalizing on them, and did a great job on that. Once they got into those zones, sometimes they had a little bit harder of a time generating things from the area right in front of the net. With Stanley's ability to get the puck to the net, as well as the other Jets needing to be better at doing that, That's where you create those opportunities in front of the net. And even last night, I mean, Scheifele had a couple rebounds that just didn't go in. Matthew Perreault had a glorious opportunity. I mean, the Jets will do what they do when they've got a little bit of space and they can generate that speed. But as the degree of difficulty goes up, as you're playing teams that are better defensively, you're going to need to generate offense outside of the rush. That is the way you do it. And listen, you look at last night, a couple of those rebounds, maybe get a little bit of a different angle on the stick on it. And maybe they're in and not, and maybe it's a different conversation. The bottom line is that's something that the Jets as a team, I think, are going to need to continue to improve on, because it's great to, score a highlight reel 3-on-2 and 2-on-1 goals. But, the better teams you play against, the less opportunities of those that are going to be there.
And I'll say one more thing on Stanley. I think the question is starting to turn into, does he, not that he comes in or out of the lineup, but when do you put him with like a Neil Pionk, right? Like, and I get it. Like, that pairing has been good with Forbort and Pionk for the most part this season. But if Stanley's playing this well, at what point do you kind of reward him with a top 4 spot there and see what he can do with a guy like Pionk, which is better defensively sound, but also has that kind of offensive, I guess, slant to him, right? And so I'd like to see that just a little bit. I mean, this is now it's experiment. You're obviously coming into the trade deadline where you're probably looking for a top 4 defenseman, and so I get that. But like I'd like to see Stanley play with Pionk and see what he can do. Still on the same natural left side, but just see what he can do there, and just give that a couple of goes, because you can shelter the third pairing all you want. And they've done that a lot. But I think, to see what Stanley would look like next to Pionk is kind of the next phase in his transition, I think, or in his progression. I think that's what the conversation should be. And not that is he on the bubble to come out of the lineup, but is he ready to see what he can do in the top 4?
And what will be really interesting is whether that will be a result of injury getting the opportunity, or whether, he continues to play the way he's playing and Paul Maurice says, you know what, let's give this guy an opportunity. Let's give him a little bit of a look. I mean, look, and we know the way this, team operates and, does business, and it's a slow and steady approach. And, I don't think that they'll ever put him in that position if they don't think that he is ready, unless they literally don't have other players to do it. But to your point, I think the way that he's playing right now is probably giving Paul Maurice some thought behind closed doors of the coach's office that, maybe this kid's ready for, even more opportunity, more ice time, and potentially that means playing with some other guys. Moving away from the blue line for a minute. Well, actually, I guess it has to be part of the conversation. We heard Cheveldayoff speak yesterday about a number of topics. I think the one that is of most interest to fans is the upcoming deadline in about 4 weeks. Yep. You've got, 3/4 of the league south of the border, which includes a 14-day quarantine. Thoughts on what you heard from Chevy yesterday and the Jets going into the deadline, specifically as it relates to Ekholm, Savard, a couple of the top 2 defensemen we've been heard bandied about that certainly would be a nice addition to the Jet back end.
I mean, I've already said what I expect him to say, that they'll be looking. He always kind of says that. But I do think that they are looking for that top 4 defenseman. I don't think he's swayed by the fact that there is a 14-day quarantine, but there's a caveat there. And I think I think if he's going to pull the trigger on a trade, he's going to want to do it as soon as he can. And I know he didn't really kind of say that, because he said yesterday that, it would be up to, if the fit's right and all that. I get that. But I think there's some urgency on Canadian teams here with the uncertainty if the NHL or the federal government really is going to, budge on that. And I suspect they're not, just based on how it's kind of gone. So if they do, great, but if they don't, I mean, I think you want to get that player, because let's, and Paul Friesen, a colleague at the Winnipeg Sun, wrote yesterday, and we had talked about it before he wrote his column yesterday, about the idea that, if you pick up a guy on April 12th and from down south, bring him up here, he's not ready to play until April 26th quarantine. Well, he's already missed 2 weeks, so you're going to put him into the lineup then. So you talk about true rental and like a guy like David Savard. I mean, he's literally going to have 1 week or so, to play the rest of the regular season and then be thrown into the playoffs. I think teams up north here are going to want to avoid that. And so I think the arms race probably starts a little bit earlier on that, but it's difficult because why would Nashville, try and cater to a Canadian team, right? When they, there's going to be lots of teams, lining up for Matthias Ekholm and a guy like that. I mean, they don't need to, necessarily pull it, they don't need to, go early here either, right? They don't have to get into anything premature either. So I think that's part of the thing where, I mean, if you're going to go after an Ekholm, you better put together a pretty good package for him and try and get that done as early as possible. But at the same time, I guess with Ekholm, he's the type that I'd probably be less worried about it. And same, I guess, with David Savard as well. I'm interested on the price tags of these guys. I'm very interested going into the trade deadline, how teams kind of value first round picks this year. Because, I mean, if you look at the AHL hasn't even started playing. The WHL just started, and they're only playing 24 games. Sorry, the OHL hasn't started playing. The WHL has just started. I mean, college is going. The QMJHL has played, but I'm so interested to know how teams approach that. And the other part about it, I'm very interested to know how GMs and coaches work together this year for players, because for all the way up, I mean, you've now, by the end of the season or by the trade deadline, you've probably played most of these teams 7 times, maybe 6 to 7 times. You know what you're going up against in the playoffs, right? Like, you might not know what teams you're playing, but you have a good idea of the matchups you're going to get if you go into a series against Edmonton, against whoever it is. So now it's not, is it about getting the best player available, or is it about getting the player that can kind of work the best against the matchup that you're going to have in the playoffs? Because I know for the first 2 rounds, and that's all Canadian teams, right? So are you worried about getting the best player? And I'm repeating myself now, but or are you really trying to find the player that's going to match up stylistically, whatever it is, the best against the teams that you're going to play in the immediate first 2 rounds before you would move on? I think that's kind of I'm interested. Yeah, I would have loved to ask it to Chevy yesterday. I didn't get around to it. But I'm interested to know how much input coaches are going to have in terms of, I need this type of defenseman. I need this is the guy I need to play against the Matthews line or whoever. I think that's the interesting part that maybe people aren't always, thinking about.
Yeah. And you know what? You make a great point about the first round picks this year, in that, I mean, just the lack of scouting, the uncertain nature of where people and kids are. And I guess most of them will have a chance to play some games before going in. But I mean, there was a move by a number of teams to maybe push the draft back, but then you get into PA issues on contract years and all that, and it just didn't seem feasible. So all of that. One more for you, Scott, because we do have Andrew Harris coming up.
Yep.
When are we going to see Jansen Harkins next? And listen, I kind of get it. I mean, I know people were not too pleased when Nate Thompson went to the lineup, but the fourth line, from my perspective, has been great. A big part of that has been the way Matthew Pro's been playing, and I think Lewis has been solid from day one. But it is pretty interesting. I thought Harkins really sort of established himself as a Jet regular by the end of last season, and maybe it just speaks to the strength they have up front and the lack of injuries right now that he hasn't been able to get in.
Yeah, I call this a bit of a bold projection, but I think he plays Thursday. And I was talking about this with Ken Weeb from Sportsnet last night during the game. We sit beside each other in the press box, and we both kind of agreed the fact that, I mean, so you have this big crunch of games coming up. You have, I think it's like 7 games and 13 nights coming up. You've now put Anton Forsberg on waivers. You have the ability to now put him into the, or to put another player on your squad, get him off the taxi squad. I think they're going to give Nate Thompson a break. I don't think it'll be against his former team against Montreal, but I do think that it might happen the next night against Edmonton. It's a back-to-back. It's a time where you can, you justifiably tell Nate Thompson that he can come out of the lineup to get a rest, and then you can put, give Dylan, or sorry, not Dylan. You can give Jansen Harkins, that opportunity to get back in the lineup, because again, he came out and really no fault of his own, and that's just the way it is this year. It's been a bad year for some of the young players, because that fourth line has played well, and I think. And Paul Maurice likes his veterans as well, and that line's stacked with them. But I think, Jansen Harkins, my guess, he plays Thursday night. And if I'm wrong, well, it is what it is. Lost to the internet ether, right? So.
It wouldn't be the first time. Hey, Scotty, listen, this was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, and very
Anytime.
much looking forward to having you back on real soon here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. There is Scott Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun talking Jets with us. Of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk brought to you by Knott Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Thanks again to Trev and the Knott guys for that beautiful banner ad for Winnipeg Sports Talk yesterday in the Freep. Why not get into the vehicle of your dreams at a great price with the Knott team? And if you're looking to get out of a lease or move on from a vehicle, they've got an incredible consignment program. See them at Waverly and McGillivray or online at knott.ca. And, of course, our friends to Royal Sports. Spring is here. It is time to get outside. Talked to Greg and Gerald yesterday. They've got so much in new stock when it comes to getting outside. Of course, we've got soccer and baseball. Camping's coming up. You want to get a new pair of kicks running around. They've got all the great brands there. And if you've ever tried disc golf, which is one of the great under-the-radar activities to do in spring and summer, pop by Royal Sports. They'll get you kitted out, and you can go pretty much snow's gone. We should be ready to play right away. So thanks again to Knott and Royal, as well as the Nicky DQ Group and Boston Pizza. We were talking about free pizzas last night at the hockey game. Let you know what you can get from BP a little bit later on. But right now, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome in for the first time on Winnipeg Sports Talk, Blue Bomber star and still reigning Grey Cup champion, Andrew Harris. What's going on, boss? Great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm loving that background on the back. It's that they overkilled a little bit on the confetti. I think it was there was almost too much. You couldn't even see. You're choking on it, but it was a great day.
Well, sure. there was it had been waiting for a while. The blue and gold confetti had been building up for a while, so we had a lot to blow off, and I figured that would be a perfect background to bring in you as we look forward to seeing you and your teammates getting back on the field. First off, I mean, this has been the longest off season ever. You come off one of your greatest achievements and victories in a pretty incredible career, and now we're more than 12 months removed from holding up that trophy. How you been, and what have you been doing?
Yeah, it's been a long. I think we're almost at 16 months, 17 months since we played, and I mean, for me, it was a tough summer this summer, and just going through, usually training and leading up to training camp, and usually getting used to being around the guys again, and having that kind of taken away from you was definitely a tough pill to swallow. And going through, just what do I do next? So I've always been doing some sort of business ventures off the field, and working on trying to establish myself for life after football. And for me, things were kind of slow. COVID was hitting. I actually got into the car business, and I'm doing some sales consulting for some other different companies, and I'm doing some real estate development as well right now. So I got my hands in a few different things, and just working down here at Midtown Ford right now, and do some construction sales and do sales for one of my friends' commercial cleaning companies as well. So I got my hands in a few different things, and DJ and I, DJ the Llama, he plays for the Montreal Canadiens, good friend and ex-teammate of mine. We started Pro Prep Academy, where we help young athletes evolve their game on and off the field, whether it's tutoring, strength conditioning, sports psychology, nutritional side of things. Then we have a team of doctors and physiotherapists and massage therapists and chiropractors to help keep their bodies nice and right. So that's been keeping me really busy, and kind of motivating myself, while not being around the football field and bring on the guys. But it's definitely been a weird year for a lot of people, and especially after coming off such a great high.
No doubt about it. Andrew Harris with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Now, I'm not surprised at all that you've got your hands in a number of different kettles. And this part of it, I'm sure, was part of the attraction to come back to play with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mean, arguably the most impactful free agent signing in the history of the football club, and that's a long, long history. I imagine as much as you believed in the direction the Bombers were going and the people that were running the football club, and knowing how amazing it would be if you were a centerpiece of a championship team in your hometown, the ability to, continue to sort of grow your brand and build for life after football in Winnipeg, I'm sure was part of the reason why it made sense to become a Blue Bomber in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest draw for me, number one, was my daughter. She just turned 13 this past January. So, being back here for the last 4 or 5 years has been instrumental in our relationship and just being a father as a whole. Any athlete that spends 6 months, or any person that spends 6 months away from their child, back and forth, it definitely puts a lot of strain on their development and yourself as a parent, just being away from for so long. So that was a big deciding factor for me. And then too, I figured that there'd be lots of opportunities off the field to grow and just on a business standpoint and just grow financially. I know football is a young man's game, and I'll be turning 34 in April here, so that time is ticking, and I want to be able to transition into what's after without having to kind of start from the bottom again and just transition into the business world seamlessly. So that was very important for me.
You mentioned your age, and I mean, age is a number in a lot of ways. However, I mean, you look at your career, the amount of carries, the amount of yards, everything that you've done in the CFL, that takes a toll. How are you feeling right now? Because I imagine you've gone the longest without getting hit in a long, long time. I mean, how are you feeling right now going through this last year and looking ahead to hopefully getting back on the field soon?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is I usually play a lot of men's league hockey and basketball, so not being able to do that, I'm probably not as in good a shape as I've been. But now that things are opening up again, and I've been heading back to the stadium and going to work out, I feel like after a couple of workouts, you come right back, and that muscle memory is right there. So there might be a couple extra pounds that I might have to shut off, but I think everyone's going to be in that same boat. So it was funny. We did a workout today with a bunch of young athletes from the age from 12 to 17, and some of them were about this close to puking. So I mean, for us as professional athletes, that's definitely going to be there, and there's going to be some growing pains as far as getting back into shape. But having this long off is definitely allows the body a chance to heal. But after the season 2019, I always want to say last year, I was so jacked up and after having my 2-week break there, which was unexpected, but I felt like I was ready to go play a few more games. So if I was able to kind of keep going, and if there was a Canadian Arena League or something like that, I probably would have played in that too. So my body's feeling great, and the biggest thing is my mind's even better, right? After a while, playing a lot of years, I talked to a lot of veterans that said, when you play for so long, you kind of lose the passion and the fire to keep on going. And I'm really just excited to get out there with the guys again, and looking forward to trying to get into the Grey Cup with a great group of guys, great set of coaching staff, or great set of coaches, and do it again for this wonderful city.
Andrew Harrison, the Blue Bombers, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Now, Andrew, before we talk about the upcoming season and what's next, you mentioned that you and DJ Lalama have done this Pro Prep Academy, and not being someone without kids, I've thought a lot about this. As we were just talking with Billeck about the upcoming draft and about scouting NFL, who's going to be in the NHL draft next year, and what these kids have been going through, and the scouts having the issues with scouting them. The kids that you're working with, 12 to 17-year-olds, probably pretty high-end athletes that have, for all intents and purposes, been shut down for a year. What have you seen from these kids, from kids that were like us a long time ago, but have dealt with a global pandemic that no one was prepared for? How has it affected them, and what are you seeing from the young boys and girls that are coming out trying to continue to train through you guys and trying to make the most of these incredible challenges that everyone's going through?
Yeah, first off, I couldn't imagine going through grade 11 or grade 12, or high school at all without having any sports. That'd be sports was so instrumental of my young life and keeping me kind of the straight and narrow, even though I veered off at times. But it just when you're so used to that routine and having something to look forward to, and there's lots of students that are really just hoping to get a scholarship and moving on after high school. So when you don't have any film, you don't have any tape on, or any your resume kind of gets cut short a year. And the other side of that is a lot of people don't really blossom until that last year at grade 12. So a lot of people are really just focusing on maybe their old tape or their old footage that they have, and they don't get that extra year to develop. So, I mean, there's so many different levels of how it can hurt and impact, a high school student or even a young person kind of going into high school because they have that year that didn't get to develop. So definitely tough. But one thing that me and DJ and our team have done is done a lot of virtual settings or our sessions. We had Desiree Scott working with our soccer side and, working in the 5x5 space in their basement or in their rooms. We did a lot of mental health sessions with Dr. Toogood. She was instrumental in helping me out, through my trials and tribulations, throughout my career and kind of getting my head and my mind right. And that's a side that I definitely took, I thought as underrated and didn't really take too seriously is the mental health and having the proper mindset. I know a lot of people say the game's 90% mental or 80% mental and the rest is physical, but I kind of took that for granted and it's definitely a big part of your performance and how you look at the game and how you attack the game. So that was one angle that we really focused on is making sure that we talk about mental health and all the different things that these young athletes are going through, and even the ones that are kind of in university and junior that are kind of moving on to try to make the jump to the CFL or to go to university. They're in that same boat too. So I mean, everyone was going through their struggles and we tried to find a way to reach each one of them and help them get better. Whether it was focusing on their nutrition, focusing on their mental health, focusing on the small little details that they can get better within their household or the resources that they had. So for us, I think we definitely were able to impact, a number of athletes, and we're looking forward to. We announced that we're doing the spring flag football league this year for all the high school students. So we're going to be able to film all those sessions and all those games. So I mean, I know it's not real tackle football, but as a DB, as a receiver, as a quarterback, you're still able to highlight yourself, highlighting the best province. And so we'll have a high school, junior varsity, and varsity league, and our division, and then we'll have a junior and college division as well. So we're still able to offer these kids an opportunity to highlight their skills and then put on a grander scale. And we're gonna have streaming services and be able to put up their highlight tapes. So we're really excited about having that opportunity to still have sports in our
phenomenal. And I mean, these young players, I mean, I know they're just looking for any opportunities to both play and show what they can do. Andrew Harris is with us. Well, I've got to ask you, I mean, it was a pretty crazy weekend for anyone that was following the Canadian Football League last week with the announcement that the league and the XFL were going into discussions. I mean, I don't know how much anyone can really say on it because there's not a lot of concrete details on what this is or what this might mean. But, as a Canadian player that also just went through a year of not playing because we know what the pandemic has done to so many businesses, but I think it's safe to say that the Canadian Football League's finances are not in a great spot. We realize that there's probably these conversations don't happen if it's not somewhat serious. What was your initial reaction to this? Did it totally catch you off guard? And is it something that you think might be a real positive for the future of football in Canada? Or as a Canadian player, is it something that is not a good thing? Or do you know right now?
When I first heard the news, I was kind of shocked and odd and wasn't really a big fan of it. And but I mean, now that I think about it more, I mean, it's an opportunity for us to get back and back on the field. And I just don't hope. I hope it doesn't take or change the integrity of the CFL. And that's the one thing that kind of worries me a little bit is maybe the potential maybe rule changes or the different things that might happen to the great game that we all love. It was funny actually. I after the news came out, I was just kind of flicking through the channels and I saw the 30 for 30 for the XFL, or this was the XFL. Yeah. And that was the original Vince McMahon and Ebersol and. Just the gong show that was in the first year, and how there was all this hype around it and all the rule changes and things that they thought were going to happen and how it all kind of played out. So, I mean, obviously that's not the same, ownership and mindset that we're going for now. But this is a league that's been around twice now and failed. And I mean, we're the longest football running league in North America, in the world. And, again, there's a lot of diehard fans and diehard players that really hold true to the integrity of our game and love our game, and when that's threatened to be potentially changed and I think that's going to scare a lot of people and push a lot of people out of potentially wanting to play this game or even watch this game. But if it's going to get us back on the field, and help our league in some way. There just has to be some sort of synergy that works for both sides, and I hope that we can kind of figure that out. And again, any time I can think of just getting us back and playing in front of our fans and doing the great things that we love to do, I'm always gonna listen and have some sort of optimism towards it.
Andrew, your career in the Canadian Football League is one of the greatest, regardless of passports. But you are a Canadian player. I think we've seen, what you've done for the last 10 plus years, and know that, it doesn't matter what country you come from. If given the opportunity, you would have been a star in this league. But I do want to ask you, thinking back to getting your start, playing junior football, going to BC, and then coming to Winnipeg, how much did the Canadian rules, in your opinion, for the league help you get your opportunity? And if they didn't have that same ratio and not, do you think that you would have been given that opportunity over maybe some American players that might have better tape or a bigger school or whatever?
Absolutely. I think both-sided here. Being a Canadian running back from a junior program hurt me at first. Because Wally Buono was like, oh, we're not going to start a Canadian running back, let alone a junior Canadian running back. But as I kept coming back to camp, I kept showing out well. But the only reason I was going to camp is because I was a Canadian and a junior player, was a non-counter. So, it was kind of a double-edged sword there where, I wouldn't have the opportunity to go and play and become get on a CFL roster. And even in those times, at camp, they put me at receiver, at safety. They kind of had me running around a little bit. But after 2-3 years, going back and showing well, I got an opportunity. But yeah, I don't think without a ratio, without maybe the junior exemption rule, I don't think I'd be, making the all-decade team or leading the, having leading the Canadians in rushing or yards from scrimmage. Absolutely not. So, these rules and these things, which deterrent sometimes are definitely ways to get us Canadians opportunities. And if you take that out, they're not looking at a Canadian junior football player from Nanaimo or Vancouver Island Raiders when they, there's a dime a dozen, throughout the states that they can go choose from. So, I definitely think that, yes, I blossomed into a great role and into a lot of years of hard work and blossoming as a young player, but I don't think I would have those same opportunities, have be it that, there wasn't that exemption rule or if there wasn't a ratio. But I remember Wally saying to us, he's like, well, if we start a Canadian, we have to have a Canadian backup. And that in itself, when there's only one player on the field, one running back, on the field, it's hard to find that Canadian backup that can come in and there's not that big drop off, right? When you play receiver or line, there's 4 or 5 other guys that are out there that you can kind of, mix guys in, and there's just a lot more bodies. So, when there's the one guy, the same thing with a quarterback. If you have a Canadian quarterback and, before they kind of made that rule change, you have to have another guy to come in or else your ratio is messed up. So, the running back's definitely a tricky position in the Canadian game. And without the rule changes, without the ratio and the exemption rules, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I definitely appreciate that, and hopefully that integrity and those pieces of the game kind of stay the same.
On the same side of things, though, and we talked about this with Naylor the other day, in that Andrew, it seems like the talent of the Canadian athletes is getting better and better all the time. And we saw Chase Claypool light it up for the Steelers last year, Joe down at Clemson. You can go down the list of a lot of top, now NCAA talent that, might even be getting NFL looks is happening. How different is that? And a big part of it, I think, is the training programs like you guys have going on right now. How far ahead are we as far as training our Canadian athletes to prepare them for opportunities that might come up where the passport is irrelevant?
Yeah, I think in the last 10 years, for sure, our sports science has gone through the roof, and there's been a lot more money infused into development of the players, and the opportunities are there too. So I think that the players are much more developed than they were when I was coming out of high school and even years before that. And there's the names are the names of the list of names is long, and we keep on developing these great athletes over time, year after year. So I think as time goes on and we gain more respect, and the guys like Chase Claypool, the Hubbard that's coming out of OSU, I think he's going to be a great player in the NFL. He's an amazing running back that's was on pace to do great things and just got held back from injury. But there's lots of great young athletes that are coming out and putting some respect on the Canadian name, and then which is awesome. And anytime you see a young Canadian playing the NFL, it definitely puts a smile on my face.
Andrew Harris with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and it's been a great chat. Focusing on right now, you got your hands in all these different things you've been doing through this time, but there will be a time, hopefully very soon, to get back to work. If you talk to your teammates, and just when you're working out, I mean, how hot is that fire burning to get back out there at IG Field in front of fans, raise that damn Grey Cup banner, and go and try and run it back?
I mean, I don't know if you obviously know Yoshi Hardrick, but anytime you get on the phone with him, period, it's always an intense conversation. But you start talking football and you almost have to hold the phone back here because he's screaming and yelling and going nuts. So yeah, there's lots of guys who are definitely excited and chomping at the bit and to get back at it. And I think the biggest thing is just being in front of our fans. I mean, I was talking to Nick from Nicolino's. I know you know him well too, and he was so excited about the unveiling of the flag, and he's like, I'm just so pissed off that we got robbed from that. Just the 2020, having the fans in the stands, and when you kind of think about that and put that in perspective, and how great of a day that would have been right after doing it the year after, would have been an amazing spectacle to be a part of. But we're gonna get there soon, and with the vaccines rolling out and the numbers going down, I think that the end is near with this, and hopefully we can get back on the field sooner or later.
Oh, hey, dude, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, that place, and even if it's 50% fans, I don't know what the situation will be in with how many people you can get in, but even if it is half the building, not only will it be an incredible celebration of the 2019 Grey Cup champs and ending that drought, and finally people in blue and gold getting to come together to celebrate it, but I think it will also be incredibly special for any football fan, and the party would have been going off even if the team was 2-16 the year before, just because, you know what, fans, they love, I mean, sports is one thing that absolutely brings communities together. We saw it like we haven't seen in a long, long time. I mean, to me, the Bombers winning the Grey Cup in 2019, the Jets playoff run in 17-18, and the Jets coming back to Winnipeg in 2011, three of the most significant, events for our community, not just sports. So I'll tell you what, when the green light is given, Bomber fans will be ready to go. They'll feel like they will come to that game like you guys went into McMahon Stadium to blow out the Ticats in the Grey Cup. And don't worry about the celebration. Will get every ounce that it deserves, and maybe even more because of what we've been through, having to wait to celebrate what you guys were able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a part of the whiteout parties and the parade, and I was part of coming out of that tunnel. So that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of excitement, and that's a lot of drinks being drinking. So I'm looking forward to continuing the party and the excitement, and just being a part of something special in this province and in this city. And that's one of the reasons why I came back, and definitely a lot of pride of being part of this and being instrumental and a leader on this team and in this community. So lots of excitement and just looking forward to it.
Well, dude, it's certainly a big reason why we wanted you to be the first Winnipeg Blue Bomber to join us on the new chapter here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It was always great talking to you back on Pembina Highway, and I'm sure this will be the first of many, many convos we have here on the new program. Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time. Continued success. Be well, be healthy, and can't wait to see you back in number 33, getting into the end zone with that rock coming up in a few months.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me, and congratulations on the new show, and all the best of luck to you as well. I'm sure you'll to be doing lots of great things, and like you already have been. And again, just congrats, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Cheers, Andrew. Thanks so much for doing this. There he is, the MVP, the Grey Cup, the outstanding Canadian. We don't have enough time before we got to get this pod up to go down all of Andrew Harris's incredible accolades, but I kind of figured that, if there was anyone we wanted to bring on to start off, an athlete segment on this program, with it being Winnipeg Sports Talk, is one of the greatest Winnipeg's ever produced, Andrew Harris, who, of course, I still maintain the most significant free agent signing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have ever made. And, now a Grey Cup champ that helped end that drought that we spent far too long talking about. But it was real. But you know what else is real? The Bombers are going to defend that Grey Cup, hopefully in a few months at IG Field. And as he mentioned, we've got to get these shots coming on and get some vaccines rolled out. But hopefully many of us will be able to be there and be a part of it. Great stuff from Andrew Harris. We've got to thank our friends at Boston Pizza. As I mentioned last night, was sort of shout out to Claude Noel and Johnny Oduya. Free pizza night at Bell MTS Place. It's not free pizza, but they've got an incredible deal, the game day deal right now. The spicy pierogi pizza, meteor pizza, 24-pack of wings from our friends at Boston Pizza. You can get it at any of your local locations. Pick up, dine in if you want to bring the family. Even go out onto the patio with some friends right now with the green light, or just order online at bostonpizza.com. And, of course, the Nick and Nikki DQ group. I don't think we've ever had a more popular sponsor right out of the gate than Dairy Queen. It never takes very long before we get some people talking about going into Dairy Queen or feeling like Dairy Queen when we're on here. And, of course, if you're going to do that, support our friends Nick and Nikki, who have been such great sponsors of ours. The Nick and Nikki DQ group, DQ Northgate, Polo Park, the Dairy Queen out in Niverville, and they've just taken over the St. Anne's DQ, which, as I mentioned, I thought was seasonal. It's not. Burgers and all there for you in Old St. Vital on St. Anne's. We will get to the lines for Cool Bet in a minute, but let's bring Michael Remis back in from the control room of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Man, this has been an awesome show, Reem, and it's really gone fast. I mean, I could have talked to Billeck for another half hour today, but I got to tell you, and thanks to Darren Cameron and, of course, Andrew Harris for taking the time to join us. Great convo with Andrew on a number of topics on what it's been like being off the field all this time, looking ahead, as well as a pretty great perspective on, I think, what we learned last week. I was really interested to hear what star Canadian players would think about it, and he really laid out some of the, the cons that you initially are concerned about, but also some of the obvious potential pros, meaning, it might be what it takes to keep this game moving forward and keep football on the field here in the PEG and north of the border.
It's very interesting to hear what Andrew Harris had to say, especially at the beginning, because he said, look, maybe he was being overlooked at playing running back because he was Canadian, and then when he eventually got the chance, it was like, okay, if we want to keep the ratio intact, we have to find a Canadian backup. But I think his play really determined all where he would be. And again, as he said, all-decade team, one of the greatest ever at running back for sure. So it was great to hear what he had to say, and I agree. I think you don't want to take away from the Canadian game what makes it great, but at the same time, you don't want to stand in the way of growth. So a lot's being speculated. It's all speculation, but that is what we're here to do. It is have fun. It does lead to a lot of great discussion. So definitely a nice conversation there with Andrew Harris.
All right. Got some great comments coming in. Deals with integrity. Great to hear from Andrew Harris. Cheeseburger Walrus shoveled down some DQ yesterday. Oh, yeah. And Brad Hall, not in a good mood today, Reem. Brad says, sorry, until you talk the pandemic vax talk, I'm done with you guys. I don't know how you can talk about anything in 2021, considering we can't go to the damn games without mentioning the pandemic and what needs to happen to get us back to normal. So, Brad, I apologize, but that's unfortunately just sort of part of life right now. You can't really stick your head in the sand about it, and especially when you're talking about something like the CFL, which is on the verge of having, which is in the situation we've discussed because of damn COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm sorry Brad's going to go, but I'm not sure what we're supposed to talk about when you can't have fans at the games, and we're wondering if these leagues are going on. I will say, though, I was flipping through movies yesterday on the weekend with my wife. We're looking for something to watch, and there was a movie where it's like, in the backdrop of COVID-19, two lovers come together. I'm like, no, I don't need to deal with that. I'm done.
That reminds me. Remember the movie a couple years ago that came out in the midst of, we were all learning about head injuries and concussions. In the movie, it was called Concussion the movie. Like, who in the world wanted to go see that? I mean, they should have just made a name that made it sound like, a love story or something like that. Maybe a rom-com that involved a concussion because, and I'm sort of with Brad. Like, believe me, dude, I'm sick of it too. We're all sick of it. We want to get through it. But it is a reality right now. So yeah, I'm out on concussion movies, and I'm also out on COVID rom-coms as well, Remis. If you end up getting sucked into it, you can come in and bring a review on Winnipeg Sports Talk for the end of the show.
Not watching, yeah. No, don't get us wrong. We're all sick of it, but I mean, you got to deal with it day to day. I got my fantasy baseball draft coming up. I got to wonder how it's going to affect, baseball this year. We're seeing it in all sports. So, but I'm not going to be sitting down and watching a rom-com with that takes place during COVID-19. Not something I want to get into.
Lots of comments coming in. Take it easy on Brad. I get it. Some people have different opinions on this stuff. And listen, it is bothersome for all. John Lishka, Brad needs some DQ. Let's get Brad a blizzard from Nicky and everything will be okay. We'll get through it. Remo, tonight, no Jets game tonight, but we will look at the lines for our friends at CoolBet. And in the National Hockey League, we've got a pretty big slate of games. But to me, there is one game and one game only that is, worth really focusing in on. Dustin Nielsen and I, by the way, if you're a listener or a viewer of the Lock Shop, did a show today just before we went on. The podcast is up. Just search Lock Shop if you're listening on the pod, or you can go to Twitter. We tweeted it out at Nielsen TSN 1260. So we've hit all the games for tonight. We've made our picks, hopefully keeping the heater going. But Remo, the game that I am going to be watching tonight. Why, some may ask, it's a little bit sadistic. Buffalo at New Jersey. The Sabres have lost 11 games in a row. The Devils have lost 11 at home, 11 in a row at home, and 9 of 10. And by rule, somebody has to win this hockey game tonight. Buffalo, of course, embarrassed last night 6-0 by the Washington Capitals. New Jersey comes into this game a minus 185 favorite, having won 1 of 10 and lost 11 in a row at home. It speaks to just how miserable the Buffalo Sabres have been this year.
Yeah, it's been really bad for them this season. Not good at all. Talked about firing the coach. Who's going to get traded at the deadline? GM Kevin Adams coming in and said he was disappointed, but then followed up with not making any moves. So people in Buffalo very upset. They want to see a winner. They've been dying it. We saw what happens in Buffalo when the Bills win, but the Sabres, even after going through the tank and getting Jack Eichel, they still haven't made the playoffs. So I don't know how you can put yourself through that, Huss, maybe for the jokes. But if you want to watch real teams play, I would go with Boston, Pittsburgh. Those are two pretty good squads. Of course, Islanders, Capitals, although some people say they're not a fan of the Islanders' style of play, maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing, but and you also have a rematch of the Cup final, although Dallas, not quite the same team. They've had a number of injuries from that deep run, and Lightning obviously don't have Kucherov, but that is on as well tonight. So a couple of games to keep you posted.
Well, Dusty made a great point about the Islanders going into this game tonight against Washington. They're 9-0-1 in their last 10, and I think 8 of the 9 wins are against Buffalo or New Jersey. So, you sometimes this year more than ever, you sort of need to check the schedule to put it into perspective. But what can you say about Barry Trotz's club? 19-6-4, first place in the East. And that Boston-Pittsburgh game is big tonight. Pittsburgh's won 6 in a row going into tonight's game. Boston has lost 4 of 5. The Bruins right now, they do have 2 games in hand on Pittsburgh, but they're 5 games back. I mean, they lose tonight in regulation. It's a 7-point difference. And then you've sort of got the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Washington comfortable. And all of a sudden, Philadelphia just 1 point back of Boston for that final playoff spot. So that'll be a real interesting game tonight. I actually like Boston as an underdog to go in and win that game this evening. We've got Carolina at Detroit. Carolina, obviously a huge favorite. And the Minnesota Wild, and this number continues to get bigger. The third game of a 3-game set against the Coyotes, Reem. Wild opened up about minus 200. It's now minus 217. 8-1 the goal differential in the first 2 games for Minnesota. Dalla Bill Kirill, the Thrill, is thriving in Minnesota. He's seemingly completely changed the makeup of that Wild team. And to me, the Wild are maybe the biggest surprise so far in a good way in this National Hockey League season, although we haven't seen a lot of them as we normally do in the Central Division.
Yeah, Kaprizov, watch out for him for the Calder. I've heard some talk at least a month ago about, betting on Dean Evison as Coach of the Year. Minnesota, unlike any Minnesota team we've seen in the last couple of years, they have some young talent. They have some exciting players. I'm happy to see that Joel Eriksson-Ek, Kevin Fiala, a number of good, Matt Dumba as well. Spurgeon they signed for a long term. But one guy who I did pick up in my fantasy league who has been very good this season, Capo Kakinen, 11-4 record, 219 goals against, 922 save percentage. A huge reason as well why they're having so much success.
Yeah, he has been a revelation for the Wild so far this season. And again, the Wild looking to make it 3 in a row against the Coyotes tonight. We've got a Stanley Cup rematch, Tampa Bay at Dallas. Tampa Bay minus 149 favorite on the road, and the Avalanche, no surprise, a huge favorite over the Anaheim Ducks, who have been just horrible as of late. No, maybe not quite Buffalo or Jersey horrible, but real bad. Avalanche minus 278. And just a quick look ahead to tomorrow. Huge night in the Canadian division. Vancouver and Ottawa, Montreal at Winnipeg here in the rematch of these two clubs. And another tilt in the Battle of Alberta. And Reem, what a big win for the Calgary Flames last night. Brad Treleving, I think he knew what he was getting in bringing Daryl Sutter in. The team steps up with 2 big home wins against Montreal and then beats Edmonton last night. They've won 3 in a row. We'll look to make it 4. And they need those wins to get right back into a spot where they will be a playoff team in the North Division.
Yeah, real impressive what they've been able to do since the coaching change. We'll see if it's just an early bump or if they can continue. Calgary's a solid team. We saw them last year when they played the Jets in the playoffs. Gaudreau, he got off to a hot start, and they kind of fizzled and seemed like maybe they're finding their way. They're sitting now in the 5th in the Canadian division, 14-12-3, 31 points. So, yeah, as you said, big night. And these games against teams ahead of you, like Calgary, for playing against Edmonton, massive. So, that's something we'll keep an eye on. We're always watching the Canadian division, maybe more so. Definitely more so than the rest of the league. I don't know what everyone in chat, but it's kind of nice. You only got your 7 teams you got to focus on. But I agree, it does skew a lot of the stats. You look at the scoring leaders, and a lot of them from the Canadian division because I think defense lacking. You've seen a couple coaching changes. Also has the worst team in the league. In Ottawa, that some teams
not even close to the worst team in the league. I think Ottawa beats Buffalo 9 out of 10 times and Jersey 8 out of 10 times right now. Buffalo, the Sens are a team that they're going to be underdog every time, but they're definitely a clear worst team in the division right now. But there are some pretty bad teams right now, and we're going to see 2 of them going head-to-head tonight in one of the worst regular season matchups in recent NHL history. Couple football notes before we finish up. Enoch Mwamba, the well-traveled CFL All-Star linebacker, has a new home with the Double Blue, the Toronto Argonauts, for the upcoming season. But the NFL free agency has been hot and heavy, and this is quite interesting. The New England Patriots, we talked about adding Jonnu Smith yesterday on a 4-year, $50 million deal. They go in and add another tight end, snagging former Charger tight end Hunter Henry on a 3-year deal, $37.5 million. Cam resigns. They added, a couple more depth players on the, at receiver and on the line. But Reem, what an interesting move by Bill Belichick, considering they didn't seem like there was a lot of real game breakers and playmakers maybe of the wideout market. So they go and attack the tight end market, grab the 2 top free agents off the board. And I'm sure Pats fans, the few Pats fans that are still Pats fans now that Brady's left and won Super Bowls in Tampa, are thinking that just maybe that he and Josh McDaniels can dial up an offense similar to the one that featured Rob Gronkowski and the man who will not be named, or I will, the late Aaron Hernandez back in 10 years ago or so, when both of those players were coming into their own and were really dominating the NFL in a very different setup and formation than most of the other NFL teams were running.
Yeah, we'll see how this plays out. I know they drafted 2 tight ends last year, and now they've signed 2 of the top ones. So Hunter Henry was, solid. Your friend Jeff Feinberg will tell you he was very good in LA for a long time. And John Smith is a nice athlete as well. So with 2 tight ends, maybe that'll be their focal point of the offense along with Cam Newton. I don't know if this is going to work, but the Patriots are swinging. Maybe not something they normally do in free agency. So a lot of player movement here early on in the NFL.
Yeah, the other important things, if you haven't been paying attention, what you need to know, Drew Brees, of course, retired. Taysom Hill's got a weird deal. It's like, it says it's 4 years, $140 million, but every year is voidable by the team. So a lot of funny money. Anyways, Taysom Hill's back, and Jameis Winston's going to get a 1-year deal, and the Saints will go into next season with Winston and Taysom Hill as their 2 quarterbacks. And Fitzmagic is back at another team. There's that about a dozen now in the National Football League, but Fitz is back. He will sign with the Washington football team. He and Taylor Heineke will be the quarterbacks going into camp. It's expected Fitzpatrick will be the starter, but we'll have to wait till camp on that. Corey Davis goes from the Tennessee Titans to the New York Jets. And Rob Gronkowski, speaking of tight end, said he was going to dip his toes in the free agent waters. He's back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on a 1-year deal, and Bronco fans will be happy. The Broncos have exercised their option on linebacker Von Miller. What was that, Reem? We got something going on?
I got a Kijiji deal. One sec. Hold on. Facebook Marketplace. Guys, here. Hold on.
Lots going on right now. Okay, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just wrap it up with that? A great show today. We really appreciate Andrew Harris, and Scott Billeck for coming in. Although, you know what? Maybe in the comments in the chat right now, hit that like button. Of all the things that could, maybe, give a hiccup into the Winnipeg Sports Talk operation, a Kijiji Marketplace sale, even knowing Michael Remis, was probably down near the bottom of the list. However, it may have been plus 200, but that is exactly what's happening right now. So we're going to see, we will get Remis back. We'll finish it up. Once again, got to thank our great sponsors, Not AutoCorp at Waverly and McGillivray at Not.ca, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group at DQ's Northgate, Polo Park, Niverville, and St. Anne's. Boston Pizza Winnipeg. You can order online at bostonpizza.com. And, of course, our friends at Royal Sports. Spring is here. Get outside. But first, make a quick trip to Royal, and they'll get you fully outfitted on whatever you want to do outside to get back out and get back at it. Remo, did that really just happen? Did we have a Kijiji Marketplace deal just pop in and impact the final bit of our program? I'm sure this is going to be as popular as the muted mic in the chat.
Yeah, I told him yesterday. He messaged me during the show, and I was like, no, I can't come. I can't do it at that time. Then he called me texted me at 2, and was like, can I come now? I'm like, you know what? Sure, maybe you'll come before the end of the show. We'll wrap up. And it was just near the end, and I had the item ready, and I gave it to him. I said, I gotta go. Just give me the money.
Now, okay. I mean, listen, this has already become content on the program. Give us the details of this Kijiji Marketplace transaction. What was sold? What was purchased?
Yeah, it's actually Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, excuse me.
And what was it? It was a Tyler Myers growth chart.
What a way to end a show. Someone in Winnipeg has a Tyler Myers growth chart, courtesy of the CTO of Winnipeg Sports Talk, who takes, multitasking to a new level afternoons here on the station. Remo, looking forward to tomorrow. Should be a great show. We'll line up some Jets guests and get ready for game number 2 between the Jets and Montreal. And, of course, they're going into back-to-back games with travel in between. So Montreal and Edmonton on Thursday before a game Saturday night. Big week for the Winnipeg Jets, and certainly they'll look forward to, they'll hope to get a better result than they did last night. Will definitely need to clean it up if they want to get those 2 points.
Yeah, I think taking care of the turnovers is what's going to be important tomorrow. A lot of people in chat having a good time. I figured it would be good for, it's good for viral content anyways. So You
Yeah,
never know
that-
what could happen when you're at home. Winnipeg Sports Talk.
No, definitely not. All right, thanks to everyone who joined us live in YouTube on the chat, and of course, everyone checking it out afterwards on their favorite podcast feed. We'll be back at it tomorrow live at 1 o'clock in your podcast feed right around 3 p.m., getting ready for the Jets and Montreal Canadiens before the team heads to Edmonton. For Michael Remis, thanks to our guests, Scott Billeck and Andrew Harris. And our sponsors, check the Sports Talk Winnipeg Twitter page for the cool bet lines of the day. We'll throw those out in a moment, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, folks. Have a great evening, and thanks for listening and being with us.
On YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.